Good evening. I'd like to bring the March 18th, 2020 meeting of the Sebastian City Council to order, please. Would you stand for the invocation by Dr. John Gill, Sebastian United Methodist Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Vice Mayor Malty.
Pray. Gracious and loving God, we come before you this evening, asking for your wisdom and guidance for these city leaders and for all governmental leaders throughout our nation and our world. The spread of this virus is not only threatening the health and lives of all people, it also is triggering an economic crisis, the likes of which most of us have never seen in our lifetimes. We're anxious and fearful, for we don't know what each day will bring. But you, O God, have told us in your word over and over again, fear not. Through the prophet Isaiah, you said to us, do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be afraid, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will surely help you. I will uphold you with my right hand of righteousness. Yes, Father, we can trust you to see us through this difficult season, and you will be with us through whatever comes. So send your Spirit upon these city leaders and grant them your wisdom to steer this community through dark and stormy seas to a brighter tomorrow. We pray all this, confident in your love and saving grace. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will be respectful of one another, even when we disagree. We will direct all comments to the issue. We will avoid personal attacks.
Okay, Council, this is going to be kind of an unusual meeting. On Tuesday, as you all know, I signed a declaration of local emergency in concert with Indian River County, and I believe the municipalities in the county, with the exception of Fellsmere, and they have to have a special council meeting to do that. And we are operating right now under guidelines that have been established by the president and specifically those established by Governor DeSantis. I'm going to let the city manager in a couple minutes kind of explain some of the things and the actions that have been taken prior to the time we get into the business that we're doing this evening. But before that, I kind of want to assure the public that we had this meeting tonight with not necessarily with a heavy heart, but we just chose to have the meeting because there were some items that we really had to deal with. First, this is the first time that the council as a whole has met since I declared the local emergency, and I felt like that the council needed to be together at one time while we do that. Secondly, we do have some business items on the agenda that we do need to deal with, and I'm going to go over those in a couple of minutes. But we are coordinating our efforts in Sebastian with the county. We're coordinating them with all the cities in the county, and we're coordinating them with the governor's office and with the directions that come from Governor DeSantis. He is aggressively attacking this virus and the issue at a state level, and we are responding to that. We've been directed at the municipal level that we cannot have groups of more than 10 people in a gathering on any property that is owned by a municipality, hence we had to limit the access to this meeting tonight. We are going to have access to the public in a couple of cases. We also have a Facebook feed that in a few minutes Barbara's going to get up and explain to us how people can get into it. You look surprised, but she said you mentioned it to her. And I have right here on my iPad that she gave me a feed from her so she can transfer questions from the public that we can then respond to as we have to do that. I think it's our belief that the governor has implemented steps that hopefully will allow the local governments to mitigate as much as possible the impact of the virus, and we're moving in that direction. Secondly, anyone who wants to get some emergency notifications from the city, if they go to the cityofsebastian.org and move down a little bit on the page, they'll find the link to sign up for emergency alerts. If you please go do that, follow that link, and then follow the page it takes you to and fill in the information, then when and if the city has to respond to an emergency alert, you'll actually get that emergency alert on your telephone and your email access. It's kind of important to do that. I'm going to turn it over to City Manager now, let him talk a little bit.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of council, so...
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, are we going to do a roll call, or?
Oh, I'm sorry. Would you do a roll call, please, before I do that?
Mayor Dodd?
Yes, here.
Vice Mayor Motti?
Here.
Councilmember Gilliams?
Here.
Councilmember Hill?
Here.
And Councilmember Paris? Here. Thank you.
All right. Now, Ms. Carlisle.
Yeah, so Mr. Mayor, a couple of things. You know, we're all cognizant of our social distancing and trying to eliminate the spread of this disease through contact, which seems to be the most common form of, as they know today, of spreading the disease. So some of the things that we've put in place at City Hall is we're encouraging online permitting as much as possible through our MyGov system. Our building official is working on an email system so that residents can scan in surveys and things to do some of the minor permitting. We're setting up electronic participation, which Barb's going to talk about through the YouTube, Facebook, and this Zoom to try to allow public to participate electronically, which we think is going to be more commonplace as this thing moves forward. And talking with our community leaders in the different cities, it's all of us are looking at some type of virtual meeting. There's some proclamations, resolutions out there doing that. We're still waiting for confirmation or an opinion from the Attorney General on that virtual meetings. And so we're going to be looking at all that information and bringing that back to you for consideration. I've canceled all mandatory, non-mandatory travel, so people are not going to be traveling and going to other events. We're evaluating the long-term issues with these school closures. The governor has said April 15th. There's also some talks of schools being closed for the remainder of the school year. And we have employees with children, and we're looking at that issue. We're trying to evaluate how the Senate had just passed the companion bill from the House regarding those who get affected with coronavirus or their families that get affected. The president hasn't signed it yet. We're going to evaluate that process. Our staff is looking at policies and drafting policies for our review and the attorney's review for telework and how we're going to monitor that for those that may be viable for them. Obviously, we've installed barriers. If you look at the building department, we've put some visqueen up to separate the people from our staff to keep the cross-contamination from going on. We provided disinfectants, hand wipes, and encouraged everybody to wipe down their area often, keyboards, cell phones, desks. We've instructed the cleaning crew to do a higher level of sanitation and sanitizing all doorknobs and handles and desktops and counters when they do their cleaning. We required, so then back to the inspections inside homes, we made to extend that and defer those non-essential inside home inspections. Because people may not want our staff in their homes, and we may not want to be in those homes to help prevent that spread and violate that space. So air conditioners may not get their final inspection. It's not going to stop them from running the air conditioner, but it's going to put a burden on staff later on. But we thought it was important to not go inside people's homes if not necessary. We canceled garage sale permits. We're getting that message out so that, you know, a $2 garage sale permit isn't worth having someone come into City Hall for a $2 garage sale permit. We're not canceling garage sales if people want to have it, but we're not going to make them come in and fill out a $2 permit fee to get that at this point. It didn't seem to be the right thing to do. We canceled all city-sponsored events, Easter egg, all of the events at the park, any events in any of our facilities, the community center, the senior center's closed, the arts center. Indian River Lagoon Council has went to working at home. Indian River College, who also is in that building, has decided, I think they're going to do all virtual classes. So weddings and things of that nature that were in our parks and that we have asked to be canceled. We're looking at some ways to sanitize our parks equipment because we're not closing the parks per se. We're going to try to find a way to somehow sanitize the equipment. We're not sure how that's going to go. We closed the splash pad. And all of these are in conjunction with the same thing the cities and the county is doing. They closed their pools, they closed their gun range, they're working on closing the gun range, that's under contract, but their events have been closed. We're in daily conference calls with the county and the cities, and the state of Florida and the federal government, and getting guidelines daily from the Emergency Operations Center and the Department of Health, and we're following those guidelines. The CDC and the state guidelines are something that we're taking to heart. We're following the governor's orders on restaurants. We've met with the restaurants and bars and those that are encouraging them to keep the 50% staffing rule, not sit people at bars. And if you have a restaurant or bar open, it's food and beverage. It's not just beverage. If you exceed the 50% alcohol sales, then you're a bar, and then it has to close. And I just got an update from the Florida Department of Business and Regulation emphasizing that again today. One note is the mobile testing should be starting tomorrow at the Cleveland Clinic and Indian River County Hospital at the emergency room. Only those that have the symptoms and have that 99-degree or higher temperature. If you feel sick and you just want to go get tested, they're encouraging not to impact that site just because you want to get tested to make sure you don't have it. So that's going to be, we don't want to waste tests on people that aren't symptomatic. The county is going to open up their emergency lines tomorrow at 8 a.m. Don't call it, or 8:30 a.m. Don't call today because it's not going to be there. And they're going to run it 5 days a week. 6 days a week. They're looking at maybe something on Sunday. Starting next Monday, they'll go from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then the last thing is I'm saying we should probably cancel the April 8th meeting and move all of the items and move to the 22nd. That'll give us past the April 15th date that the governor has put in place, and we can have a better handle on what's going on after that date, or as we get closer to that date.
Okay, is that it? Okay, the April 8th meeting closure, it's within the privy of the city manager to actually do that, but he's wanting to make sure we don't have any issues with that. I think it's an appropriate thing to do. We've had, I don't know if any of you have had it or not, but I've had lots of emails today about why we didn't cancel this meeting, but I felt like I'm the one working with the city manager that insisted we continue with the meeting because I felt like we needed to get together and talk about this as a group, and we could do it safely with the social distancing and so forth without a problem. So any issues with canceling the April 8th meeting?
No, sir.
No? Canceling the April 8th meeting? No? All right, so it's canceled then. Okay. So our next meeting is April 22nd. Anything else? Anyone have any questions for the city manager?
Mayor Dodd, if I could?
Yes.
I would suggest that we not only cancel the April 8th meeting, but not hold a public meeting until the state of Florida lifts its emergency declaration.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind, that just because if in fact the state of Florida extends their emergency declaration beyond April 8th through other meetings, and I don't believe it's appropriate for us to be holding a public meeting during these times.
Yes, and the city manager has the authority to actually cancel that April 22nd meeting
Right.
if it turns out that the state extends the limits that we have.
Okay.
So he can notify us if it's time to cancel that. It's just, I don't want to, I prefer not to say cancel until we decide to have a meeting, but let's put a date, because we have a couple of things like on the agenda right now tonight that we need to postpone until a certain date.
Right, I understand. So we have to give it a certain date, and then we're going to have another meeting. See, I do feel it's somewhat inappropriate for us to have a public meeting when the state of Florida, and we're in concert with the state of Florida, is asking people to not get together in public. So, and I understand why we're here for this purpose, and I think it's good for the PSA anyway. I think that it's a great public service announcement. I think it's very appropriate, but I think that we should make the statement that we're not going to hold a public meeting until the state of emergency has been lifted. And I think that would be the appropriate way to show the public that not only are we asking them to not congregate in groups, we're not going to congregate in groups that would require their input.
Okay.
And we could address that. Like I said, we'll know closer to the 22nd what we have. If we have to close that meeting, the emergency directive order gives me the power to cancel it without meeting with you all. I can say it's not safe, it's not prudent, it's not in the best interest of the city, and I can cancel it based on our ordinance and the powers that are transferred to me. I can sign contracts, bills.
Right.
We have new council members. They haven't been through this. We want to make sure that there's opportunity for them to understand the process, and that we're not trying to do something underhanded or trying to do something subversive, that we're going to do what's prudent for the city. I've been entrusted with this power. I hope that everyone on the council trusts that I'm going to do what's in the best interest of the city. I'm not going to take advantage of that
Right.
at
Well,
all.
there's a couple of things there, and I agree with you 100%. The fact of the matter is the emergency declaration has afforded you the power to run this city and to make the decisions that are necessary to. Secondly, I would say that if in fact you were to do something that I seriously doubt and really would bet the House against, you doing something inappropriate, you'll face those measures when we get back to the meetings.
That's correct.
And the third thing, if there was a third thing, I'm starting to get Bidenitis here. But no, so those two things by themselves, you have the extraordinary power to make all of the decisions, to make the expenditures, to approve the expenditures that are budgeted items, and even those that are not under emergency situations. So, and there's no person I would rather have at that helm or with that power than you. So I'm very comfortable, and I hope that the citizens of this community are very comfortable that we have an incredibly capable city manager who's going to be able to take us through this, guide us through this, and he's the one with the brains, not the people up here. So we have him to run the city, and I'm very happy that we have him to do that.
No, not, you just crossed the boundary, because now he's going to start snickering down there when you said he's the one with the brains and not the guys up here, so. I don't have any problem with that. Well, I guess what we can say is tentatively we're going to meet on the 22nd, subject to the ruling by the city manager related to safety issues. How's that? Does that fit the legal thing that we need to do?
I'm sorry, if I could, I think that the easy part of this is to follow the guidelines of the state.
Yeah.
Because that's what we've decided that we're going to do. So if the state still says that we're going to have we would recommend no greater group than 10, my guess is it's probably going to be stay home by then, but
Yeah,
who the heck knows?
Yeah.
But if whatever the state guidelines are, so if the state says that we shouldn't have a gathering of a group of greater than 10, then we shouldn't have a council meeting, because at that point, we can only allow one person in here. It's very inconveniencing, and we're asking the public to follow the guidelines of the state while we ourselves are not doing that.
Well,
So that
as
would be my
it stands
concern.
right now, the limit of 10 people expires on April 15th, unless the governor decides to extend it. And then it's the CDC guidelines of 50 people after that. So if the governor extends the 10-person limit, then yes, certainly we should not have a meeting.
I'd be very comfortable with that.
Yeah. Yes.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I feel very uncomfortable having the meeting today. I think that if the public can't be here, I think we should we should put this meeting off.
Let me go forward and talk about a couple things first. Then we'll deal with that. How's that?
How far are you going to go?
I'm just going to go to the next item.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for the city manager? Let me get my thing back on here so I can find out if anybody on Facebook has sent any questions in. Apparently not. There's someone typing right now on Facebook. Everyone is on Facebook. No questions at this time. All right. Thank you, guys. Okay. Now, in order to have this meeting, given the rules that we're working under, there are certain agenda modifications that we are required to make. And I want to go over those pretty quickly, and then we can decide where we go from there. The first agenda modification is that we're going to bypass the proclamations and awards and brief announcements section on the agenda. I was originally going to read the proclamations, but we're going to bypass that section. That's section 7.
What does that mean when you bypass that? I mean, I see that on page 7 we have a contract for financial services for $43,000.
We're not.
We're going to sign off on that, or
There's nothing in section 7, proclamations, awards, and brief announcements for any $43,000.
I'm looking at page 7 here, City Council Agenda Transmittal Form.
Yeah, he said item 7, so.
I'm talking about item 7 right now only, not page 7, item 7.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, I'm sorry.
Item 7, okay.
Okay.
Item 8, which is public input, that's also being scratched from the agenda. And that is, based on the attorney's advice, we have basically we have the responsibility to do that because we can't really have the public coming in and out of here to do that. On item number 9, which is the Board of Adjustment, we need to convene the Board of Adjustment and postpone this quasi-judicial hearing until our next meeting. And I'll let the attorney talk when we get to that point about how we can structure that motion so that it fits the fact that we may not have the 4/28 meeting if it turns out that we can't have it, but we'll talk about that at that point in time. The reason we have to postpone that is that if we just don't do it, then we have to go through the whole process all over again. It's not something we can simply bypass. Under item, so that would be item 9A and B, which basically are that we would postpone. Under item number, under consent agenda, if anyone pulls an item from the consent agenda, then that item is not just pulled for discussion tonight, that item is pulled and will have to be moved to our next meeting. So as long as no one wants to pull a consent agenda item, we're okay with the consent agenda.
I want to pull something.
Well, we'll get to that at that point.
Okay.
Under item number 13, committee reports, we're going to pull that item completely from the agenda, item number 13. And under item number 16, which is on page 4
Sir?
of that package
Mayor Dodd?
of the agenda.
Mayor Dodd?
Yes.
I do not mean to interrupt you, sir. You're rolling well, but you skipped item 15, unfinished business.
Oh, unfinished business we're going to do. We're going to bring that up tonight.
Well, that requires public input.
Yeah, we're going to authorize either through Facebook or through thing, anybody in that's in that holding room back there that wants to talk about that to come forward.
Is there any way we could move that to
But we've got
consent?
we got streets that are being paved, we've got driveway, we've got work that needs to be
Right.
done, so unless
Two
that
thing-
can't get approved, we need to move forward with that.
Is there any way to move it to consent, which would change the need to?
Well,
I don't have a problem with that.
yeah, Mr. City Attorney, that's tabled. Can we pull it from the table to the consent agenda?
I'm sorry, Your Honor. Say again?
Item number 15 is tabled. Can we pull it from the table to the consent agenda?
Yes, you can pull it. You can pull it
Okay,
out.
is that a motion to do that?
Yes, sir.
All right, so a motion by Councilmember Hill, and do I have a second on that?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Gilliams, that we pull item number 15A from the table and that we move it to consent agenda item F. Okay.
Is there
that all
any
right?
discussion? Did they want to,
Well, when we get to the consent agenda, we can't talk about it if we're going to
Okay.
approve it under the consent agenda without discussing it. Okay. Now, under item 16, we're going to pull items A and B. So A and B go away. Now, that doesn't, the quarterly financial report is not really an action item, and the individual who was going to do the presentation on B is not here, and we asked them not to come and do that presentation. Item C and D we need to discuss because they're projects that we are in the process of trying to move forward with, and if we don't have the money allocated, we can't move forward. And I can open that up for public comment either through the internet or through people in the back room.
I would suggest we move C and D to the consent agenda as well.
Okay, I have no problem with that if someone wants to make that motion.
I have a problem with it.
Okay,
Okay.
all right,
Yeah, I don't want to move that to consent agenda.
okay. So those are the changes. Anyone have any issues with those changes? I need a unanimous vote to do that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Not opposed, the agenda changes happen. Okay. So we're now to, okay, I am now going to recess the Sebastian City Council meeting and convene as the Board of Adjustment.
Mayor Dodd, I would make a motion to postpone this items A and B, and I would defer to the city attorney for direction on when we shall call this item.
If I can, my recommendation for the board would be motion to postpone item 9B and continue item to the April 22nd meeting, subject to any further restrictions from Governor DeSantis' office. Item can be further postponed to a date to be determined.
That's the motion.
That's the motion. Did you get that? All right.
I will help her.
Do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. I guess, any comments? Then, all in favor, signal.
I'd like to have a discussion on this.
Well, if you have a comment, I asked for comments.
Yeah. So we'll postpone this to April 22nd.
Yes.
And the reason for postponing it,
We can't have an uninhibited public comment
is the
under the
gentleman
rules that we're
here?
operating.
Is the gentleman here? He's
No,
not here?
it's not, doesn't matter. This is a quasi judicial hearing, And the rules for quasi-judicial hearing are a little bit different than the other things that we're doing, and it's impossible for us to really offer, under the rules that we're operating, to offer an undivided public opportunity to get involved with this. And so it would be onerous on the public for us to do this and at this time, so that's the reason for trying to move it. Would you like to comment, sir?
If I can, Your Honor, pretty much my recommendation was to postpone any quasi-judicial issues and land use matters, anything that's non-essentials, because of that fact. And this has been, I've been discussing this with several attorneys throughout the state of Florida, and a lot of them, actually all of them, are doing the same thing. So issues like this should be postponed to a further date. That's what my recommendation was. Exactly. What he's saying is because of the process of the quasi-judicial means it's adversary, means you have witnesses, you cross-examine, you put witnesses together, you might be crossing the 10-person rule, per se, and it's just not, at this point, it's not worth it, and we could postpone to a future date, which is my recommendation.
Okay, just so you know, I did talk to Mr. Solari about this and talked to him about what the reasons were, and he was fine with that. He understood, he said he understood what the issues were.
I would also, if we can make a part of that motion, if he's under, if there's any code enforcement action on the property, that it will cease until we see this. Is that reasonable?
Is there code enforcement problem?
I don't think there's any action on it right now.
No?
Mr. Mayor, I'm not aware of any.
Okay.
But that would be, if I may, Mr. Attorney, I believe that would be something that would be brought up during the public hearing.
We could actually, if during the quasi-judicial hearing, it turns out that there is some code enforcement action that's been taken,
Okay.
then we could deal with that separate
Very
from
good.
this.
I can tell you, Your Honor, there's also code
Your
enforcement
mic's
action.
not on, I don't think. Or is my headphone going away?
It's on. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
We've also recommended that code enforcement hearings also be postponed as well because of this issue.
Okay.
I'm not aware if the property has any code enforcement issues pending.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Well, this is why I think this meeting, and not having the public here, the whole thing should be postponed, the whole thing.
I think
I
we've
think
already
we're
gone
pick-
past that.
I was waiting for you to bring it up. You told me you wanted to discuss
Well,
a few
I brought
things.
up the agenda modifications that are required to get forward with this, so, yeah, if all we did was not have the meeting and not take this action on this item, then we would have to go through the entire notification process again on this item. By doing it the way we're doing it right now, we do not have to go through the entire notification process again. It's a legal issue with this item, this particular item, that we do that.
It's still going to be on the agenda for the 22nd. You still got a notice anyway? Are you tabling
No,
it?
it's already been noticed, and the fact that we moved it to the 22nd, those notices are still valid.
And this board does not feel, I mean, they feel comfortable having a meeting without the public here?
I feel comfortable having a meeting under these regards, yes. Anyone else want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think it's important for the public to know that we're having this meeting and that they can see it on television, that we're actively concerned about the situation and that we're not ignoring matters and issues, so I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I mean, we've set up Facebook pages.
Okay, I mean, if the consensus is to
So,
move forward, then
yeah,
we'll
yeah.
move forward. I don't know how Charles feels about it.
Okay.
I'm uncomfortable moving forward with any of this right now.
Okay.
All right, well, we have a motion on the floor. Let's do a roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Motti,
No.
Councilmember Gilliams,
No.
Councilmember Hill,
Yes.
Councilmember Paris,
No.
and Mayor
Okay,
Dodd.
motion fails. Given that, I am going to cancel, I'm going to close the meeting, and we're going to move the rest of the entire agenda forward to our next meeting.
Happy birthday to you.
Close your mic when you talk.